There was a study from MIT, and it described problem solving with one group that used their brain only, with another group that used tools like Google, and a third group that used AI. And because of the technology available today, they can measure the brain activity in each of those three groups. So they can measure it. And what they found, of course, was that the brain-only group, their brain was firing on all cylinders. It was fully engaged in the topic. The people who used Google, their brain was less engaged, and the people that used AI, even less engaged than that. Now, you can draw a conclusion from that. If I use AI time, I don't have to think as much, and my brain is going to turn to mush.
The Intelligence Forge podcast is sponsored by Permasize AI Forge. The Intelligence Forge podcast is sponsored by Permasize AI Forge. At Permasize AI Forge, we know you're ambitious, but are manual tasks like admin, lead generation, nurturing, and onboarding holding you back from truly scaling your business? Imagine saving dozens of hours every week, freeing you to deepen client relationships and execute high-impact strategy. Our clients aren't just imagining it. They're saving countless hours per week and doubling their revenue within months. We custom-build AI automation systems that eliminate the grind. From effortless lead generation and nurturing to seamless onboarding, we give you back the most valuable resource, your time, so you can focus on building those vital human connections and driving strategic growth. Stop letting repetitive tasks limit your potential. It's time to build a business that works for you, not the other way around. Ready to unlock your true scaling power? Visit PermasizeAIForge.com and book your free AI audit call today to discover how you can save time and double your revenue. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Intelligence Forge YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new episode.
From financial crisis to brain science, how CPAs can lead with clarity and build exit-ready businesses. Welcome to the Intelligence Forge, where we explore how business leaders are leveraging intelligence, both human and artificial, to transform their operations. Today, I am thrilled to have Gerald Kepner, better known as Kep, joining us. Kep, thanks so much for having you here today.
Emmanuel, thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Fantastic. Let's dive into it. But let's start by you first introducing yourself in your own world. Tell us about Kepner CPA, MindSmart, and what you're building in Dallas area.
Thank you. So my name is Kepner, and my firm is Kepner CPA. We're a small CPA firm. We concentrate on serving small business clients on a wide variety of accounting matters, and have a staff of 7 people. Other CPAs and myself do accounting work. Of course, we do tax returns, and we do consulting for clients. So for years, I have wondered, why do my clients speak in such short-term conditions? They need to be thinking long-term, and yet they're thinking, well, I've got to make payroll on Friday. So all they think about on Monday through Thursday is to make sure they have enough money for Friday's payroll. And it starts over again the next week. And I've always thought about that. And quite frankly, for 30 years, I've wondered, well, what can I really do to help these people? If all they're thinking about is short-term things, they're not going to be able to build a business of substance. They're not going to change their idea of a business into a real enterprise. So about 3 years ago, I went to the Center for Brain Health, and I didn't know anything about them. They're a world-class brain center here in Dallas. And now I don't know what you think about a brain center. Are they doing, do they have electrodes in people's heads? Are they doing operations? Are they looking at Alzheimer's and dementia, PTSD? So I didn't really know what to expect. But I went to see him, and I said, what do you have for the healthy brain of a business owner? who seems to be trapped in their business. That business owner I described to you that's spending Monday through Thursday making sure he has enough cash for Friday's payroll is really trapped in the business. Now, they may be making a living and all of that, but they really are not building anything of substance. You can't do it when you're thinking short term like that. So I asked them what they had at the Center for Brain Health. They showed me their science, which includes over 600 clinical studies that prove their science. And I said, okay, gee, that's interesting. I'd like to take the training. So I took the training. It was great for me. Now, you can tell I got gray hair, so I've been to a lot of training courses over my years, and sometimes I'll come out of a training course and I'll say, oh, that's really great. I'm gonna implement that on Monday. And then by Monday, the real world gets in the way and I forget about it. So I didn't want that to happen. So I had such great success. I had everybody in my firm take the training as well. So everybody here has been trained in the science of brain health. And we had wonderful results, Emmanuel. We doubled our profits by implementing the brain science. In my case, being the leader of the firm, I saved about a third of my time. And since you're talking to the financial world, you know that CPAs are busy all the time. We may try to get paid otherwise, but we're basically paid by spending our time on client matters. And if we're not spending our time, we're probably not billing that time and not getting paid. So I saved about a third of my time and we were still able to double our profits. So this was a powerful experience for us. So what did I do? I didn't want to be lazy, sitting around with my extra free time. So I went back to the Center for Brain Health and we developed a collaboration called Mindsmarts. Mindsmarts is the collaboration between the Center for Brain Health and Kepner CPA. And I'm taking Mindsmarts all over the country to other CPA firms and financial planners as well, to give them the same knowledge that we have and the benefits of using that in their firm.
Oh, fantastic. That's really fascinating. Your story is really, interesting. And I think we will dive deep into some of, other things that you're doing. But thank you so much for sharing that. But before we dive deeper, into some more specific, I want you to, tell us what is the most exciting things that is happening, either at Kepner CPA or at MindSmart right now. Maybe some breakthroughs, some wins, some certain things that you're celebrating that you want to share with us.
Sure. When you're a CPA, everybody thinks that the only thing you do is do tax work, right? I mean, that's what everybody thinks. Oh, you're a CPA, you do tax work. And when I say I'm a CPA and I'm talking about brain health, they're saying, what are you talking about brain health? Aren't you supposed to be studying the big, beautiful tax bill? And so we've had some wonderful success working with financial advisors and other CPA firms where they're incorporating these strategies into their business. And it takes somewhat of a free thinker to approach something like this in the first place, because people do have expectations. They're not used to hearing me talk about brain health. But we've integrated that throughout our firm, and with outside clients, I'm working with 2 financial advisors right now as a coach and coaching them through using these protocols to build their financial planning practice. Emmanuel, let me tell you this, it's amazing how many people don't really know what they stand for. And when they don't know what they stand for, they really don't know what they should be doing. Let me give you an example. Let's talk about a CPA firm, and a CPA firm can do all kinds of things. They can market their product, they can do their services. Very few at this point are doing Mindsmarts, but hopefully a lot of them will be doing that. If they recognize one of their core values is, let's say, quality, high quality. Well, everybody expects CPAs to do quality work, right? Even if you're employed in industry as the controller or financial VP of a larger company, they expect because you're a CPA that you're going to really do quality work. But if you identify that as one of your core values, that will direct you to doing things that support that core value, that you research problems for your clients, the way that you teach other people about doing particular technical work so it's of the highest quality. It includes the kinds of controls that you put in your own office, how you train your people. All of these things would be different because you believe and promote your core value of high quality. So you can imagine in our case, one of our core values is to innovate and create. That's important to us as a firm. So when I talk to people in the financial space, it's really clear that they often don't know really what their core values are. And as a result, they're wandering around trying different things. Generally, the first thing I do with people who are going to learn the brain training protocols is to make them nail down what their core values are. Because if they don't know what it is, they're not going to know what to do. And they'll give a shot at it their way. But then after they learn the protocols, they'll learn how to dig deeper into that and really begin to live their core values. And when they do that, they become much more credible and believable. You know, every CPA says, oh, well, trust is really important and honesty. And okay, well, that's kind of a given for CPAs. And so people need to dig deeper than just a surface look at the core values for themselves and their firm. Another way to look at these core values is to talk about them in terms of the non-negotiables, okay? It's non-negotiable for Kepner CPA that we are going to implement creative innovation in our firm for ourselves and our clients. That's a given for us. It's not a given for other CPAs. They may have other values, and that's okay. But in our case, that's important to us. So that's the way that we do that. The financial advisors that I'm coaching right now, neither one of them really knew what they stood for. Well, now they wanted to be a trusted advisor, of course. That's what they've been taught to be a financial advisor, right? They're going to take your money and mine, and they're going to invest it for us, and they're going to do this, and they want to be the trusted advisor. So they all speak about that, but they don't really dig into it deeply. I'm really amazed at how little people really use their brains. They take things at face value and don't dig into it to the depth that they should. When you understand more about yourself, and you running a podcast, the more you understand about yourself and what you really want to accomplish, that's going to affect you deciding what to do with your time. You're going to choose different kinds of guests. You're going to do whatever you need to market your podcast. You're going to want the podcast to be talked about in terms of, I met Emmanuel at Alforge, and they had a great topic about AI or something like that. Those are the kind of things you want. And to the degree that those reflect your core values as a person, you come across much more credible, and people will begin to follow you for those reasons.
Wow. I think the summary you gave in terms of how to use our brain is really, and I think that's just a little out of, the bigger scope. But thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, I just wanted to find out, this is the magic one question that everyone gets to answer on the podcast. But before then, I just want to know, is there any AI or technology tools that you are using to stay competitive? Because you build two successful companies, and it's not just a random or coincidence, for you to achieve this. But the way things are going in every industry, in the world that we live in today, technology, AI is really something we cannot ignore. Is there anything you're using in that light that you want to share with us?
So wonderful. So I'm a strong believer in AI. I began experimenting with it 2 years ago. So it's grown certainly in popularity at this point. I think that many people will misuse it. There was a study from MIT, and it described problem solving with one group that used their brain only, with another group that used tools like Google, and a third group that used AI. And because of the technology available today, they can measure the brain activity in each of those three groups. So they can measure it. And what they found, of course, was that the brain-only group, their brain was firing on all cylinders. It was fully engaged in the topic. The people who used Google, their brain was less engaged, and the people that used AI, even less engaged than that. Now, you can draw a conclusion from that. If I use AI time, I don't have to think as much, and my brain is going to turn to mush. Okay, well, that's not maybe what you wanted to hear, but think about it. The best way to get the most out of what you're trying to accomplish, whatever it is in business, is to first use your own talents. Then begin to use AI as a tool. So I can tell you at my CPA firm, I was gone over the Thanksgiving holiday for a week, and I have at least 50 emails from people wanting to sell me their form of AI that's going to find prospects for my CPA services. All those emails start the same way. Oh, we've got the wonderful AI technology. Obviously, they're drilling down in big data somewhere and trying to find out people that might fit our size of firm and things like that. And I noticed a difference. First, it was, we're willing to do this. Now we're going to give you a free test and allow you to find some of these prospects. So what sometimes people don't realize is that AI is going to cost them a lot of extra time. It's not going to save them. So I don't need 20 leads today from AI. I wouldn't be able to contact all 20 of them. And my firm wouldn't, because we're busy. We work. We're profitable. We're earning money. And so the idea of somebody getting me a whole bunch of leads that I've got to cultivate isn't very thrilling to me. Well, I know, obviously, because you're doing a podcast, that you're recording this, okay? And after you record it, you're going to go back and look at it and make some adjustments and do whatever you need to do to make this a good product for your podcast. So we started out using Otter to record our meetings. Are you familiar with Otter? Yeah. So we started using that, and it's a wonderful tool, right? It records the conversation, summarizes it, and it's all AI driven. It's wonderful. Well, here's the problem though. Now, after spending an hour on the phone with somebody, I've got to go back and review Otter to see if the summary is accurate. So maybe it takes me another 20 minutes to look at that and to decide whether it left out something that I said that didn't get picked up by Otter. So now I've got to edit the summary, and then I've got to send it to a client. So in that case, where CPAs are trained to think about things and remember things and that kind of activity, using Otter actually increased the workload on me. Wow. Now, doesn't mean it's not a great tool. Doesn't mean we don't use it, because we do. But we have to be really careful about that. because that tool, as good as it is, can cause us to spend extra time. And then you have to ask whether the other party, let's say it's a conversation with a client, is the other party going to read what I send them from Otter? Well, maybe they will, maybe they won't. I'm guessing with my client base, I've got about 700 clients, and so some will and some won't. And those that do, great. They'll probably, because we're dealing very often with a technical matter, they'll draw a conclusion that might be incorrect. Okay. And so you just have to be really careful about these tools. As wonderful as they may be, you've got to decide whether they really save time or not. I think the other thing you have to look at in AI is whether you're going to use it inward looking at your firm or outward looking to your clients and prospects. I think that's a significant decision that you have to make about AI. So about a year ago, we took some client data, financial data. We disguised who the client was, and we put it out to ChatGPT. And we said, hey, would you analyze this financial information for our client and tell us what you see? Okay. And it came back with a really great report. The same kind of thing that we as CPAs, if we spent a couple of hours or maybe 2 or 3, would come up with a similar kind of report. AI did it in 5 minutes, 2 minutes. It was really fast. It was great. So the question is, man, I've got to be concerned about the privacy of my clients' data. I can't use AI to do that kind of work without spending a couple hours disguising who my client is. And so I'm investigating a private AI network within my firm that will allow me to do that and really use AI to do something for my clients that's meaningful. So again, AI in its place is wonderful, okay? I love it. I use it to write a country and western song. So anyway, let me tell you something else that concerns me about AI. Number one is the privacy of the data, because once it's out there, right? And we have to be careful about those things. The second thing is we have to be concerned that even if we do that really great analysis of the financial data, this is true not only of us as outside CPAs, but true for a financial VP or somebody in a company. What are you going to do with that data? Now, let's be honest. We do wonderful financial statements, but we've got a lot of clients that don't look at them. Let's be honest about this, okay? We do great work that sometimes people don't look at. So with AI, if we can do even greater, better work, is the user going to really use it? And the question for most of those users is, okay, I have this. What do I do next? Okay? Yeah. And sometimes AI can suggest that. You could ask it to tell them, what should I do next? But we're talking about people. And people don't always do what's the best. They do what's convenient. They do what they're comfortable with. A lot of people get trapped by the familiar. So they're used to seeing something, so they really don't do anything differently. And there is a coaching or personal element that is missing because human beings are human beings. And they might have a wonderful report, and now what do I do with it? And so I think that that's sometimes missing. So what you want to do is use AI as a tool. It's your lackey. It's your tool to help your client or to help your firm. And then you're looking at AI in the right way, and you're using your own brain to know things that AI doesn't know. because there's an element of what's in it for me in every piece of financial data. Why do I care that the trend in my business is whatever way it is? Well, I care because maybe I'm going to need a paycheck, or I care because I want to move up the corporate ladder and do something more. So all of these elements are, maybe AI will get to the point where it can encourage and motivate somebody to really use what comes out of it. But in a lot of cases, I don't think that we're ready to let that happen.
Thank you so much. All right. So if you could wave a magic wand, I understand all your analogy. I understand where you're coming from. I cannot say I don't agree with you in most of the part, but still, if you could wave a magic wand and you could instantly change something in maybe it's in any of your businesses, what will it be?
So you have to be willing to be introspective yourself. When I do my best work for a client, it's because they want to be introspective. They want to learn. They want to do better at whatever it is their goals are. So when you're coaching somebody, if I could wave a magic wand, I would want people to understand all the control that they have over their brain and would just look to me to kind of coach them along the way. Your brain is so powerful. You have as many neurons in your brain as there are stars in the Milky Way. Like around 80 billion neurons in your brain. And it's only this little part of your body. So if I had my magic wand, I would want people to understand how powerful their brain is and how you have control over your brain. And you can grow your brain by using it properly. That would make my life a lot easier when I coach clients, okay? Because they would be able to implement and do things that would help them the most. They'd be able to look at AI and use it as a tool. They'd be able to challenge whatever results AI comes up with and say, well, wait a minute, that might not be right in my case. And so I think that would be what I would want to happen with my magic wand.
Thank you so much. And I think I will agree with you on this also. I mean,
well, that's because you use your brain, see? You're in a business where you are exposed to different ideas. You have some goals about your business to grow it and to incorporate all the kinds of things that you're doing. And so you're eager about all of that, and you're wanting to hear ideas. You're wanting to be challenged about things. You're asking questions to challenge your guests as well. So that's where you are, and that's why I think that you can see some of the things I'm saying. The magic of the brain is called neuroplasticity or brain plasticity. What that means is your brain is changing every moment. It's either growing or declining. Now, we're young men, so I'm not so young, but let me tell you, when your brain started losing some of its cognitive ability back when you just got to the height of your brain development, which for a male is in the late 20s. Then from then on, you start losing some cognitive ability, and you don't recognize it because your life is changing. You're figuring out your career, you're getting married, or you're having kids, or you're buying a house, or you're getting engaged in life. And all those things are things that grow your brain, but behind is a little bit of stuff that is declining at the same time. So as an individual, we have to understand that our brain is not fixed. It is changing all the time. And you have control over that. You can decide whether your brain is going to grow in its cognitive ability or not. If you live and die by just having AI do everything for you, where your brain's going.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Before I go into your books, I just wanted to do a follow-up on that. Is there a way we can measure, or maybe not measure per se, but maybe measure also how our brain is actually moving, in which direction? Just like you just say, is it developing more or is it declining? Is there a way for us to know?
So, with my long history at the Center for Brain Health, I have a way of measuring my performance. So, there are ways to do that. In today's world, the development of MRIs and CT scans and these kinds of tools can actually measure blood flow and activity in the brain. So there are ways to measure it. There was a study by Sandra Chapman, who is the head of the Center for Brain Health, scientific study that showed the blood flow in the brain prior to training and the blood flow in the brain after training and in a particular individual. And they have scientific MRI pictures of the brain at those stages. And it's really clear just from the non-scientific eye that the blood flow is much greater after somebody has training because they start to use some of these protocols that are available, and you can see and measure the greater blood flow. Oh, your brain is very hungry. It's only like, 2 or 3% of your body? It needs 20% of your nutrients every day, 20% of your blood flow, your hydration. Your brain needs all of that to be at its best because, after all, it's doing two things. One is the part that we don't have to think about, our beating of our heart, our digestive system, our blood flow. We don't have to think about those. That's your default network, and it's working. Your brain's managing all that for you. You don't even have to think about it. The other is your executive network, and that's where you're making the decisions. That's where you're deciding what to do. That's where you decide whether you want to fill your brain with a Big Mac or a really healthy meal of some sort. So there is a way to measure that. And the Center for Brain Health actually has a Brain Health Index, which is a long-term. They're trying to have 100,000 participants in a study where you get to measure your brain periodically. So that's available to people if they want to participate in that long-term brain study. And you talk with a brain coach at that time, and they have a program to allow you to see how you're thinking and so forth.
All right, thank you so much. I want to shift gear in and talk about something fascinating about your background. You've written 2 books about strategic factors that separate high-performing companies from the also, right?
Right.
Without giving a lot away, well, you can just share whatever you think you could share, but what's one big factor that most business owners completely overlook when they are trying to scale?
I'm kind of a go back to the basics kind of guy. And I think when they want to scale, the mistake they make is trying to do it from where they are without going back and looking at the foundational aspects of their business, the core values. Most people think, okay, I want to do $10 million in business, or they pick a number and they start going for it. What they're missing when they do that is they're missing real strategic thinking. And I know anybody who wants to scale thinks that they're being strategic, and they probably are to some extent. I would guess that the people that listen to your podcast are going to be more strategic. They're going to be smarter than the average guy out there or woman. So they're going to be challenging themselves. And so they have to learn how to think differently. And it's when you do that, that's when you actually build your brain cells. You get smarter as you go because you use your brain differently. So I don't know about you. I have a set of dumbbells in my office. If I want to build my bicep, what am I going to do? I'm going to do bicep curls with a dumbbell and progressively heavier weights. And what happens when I do that? Well, my muscle needs more blood. I'm exercising it. I need more hydration. I need nutrition to do this. And eventually I need to rest. I can't do that all day long, so I've got to rest. And so I can do that with a muscle. And what happens, our cells divide, our muscles get bigger. Isn't that great? Now we can go look like we're strong. How do you do that with your brain, though? You can't do this with your brain. Well, the way you do it with your brain is you learn to think differently. Think about your best day as a podcaster. I would bet you that your best day is the day you're challenged by somebody. They're giving you something new to think about. You're trying to figure out, how do I apply that to my business? If you're wanting to scale, how do I apply this knowledge to helping me scale? That's going to be one of your better days. One of your worst days is when you get a CPA on who says, oh, well, we do taxes during tax season and we work 80 hours a week, and isn't that wonderful? And that's going to be your worst kind of day, because that kind of day doesn't challenge you to think. So just like your muscle wants to be worked out, your brain wants to be worked out. The training that's offered by MindSmarts through this collaboration with the Center for Brain Health is called SMART training. So what does SMART mean in this case? Just think about the words. Strategic memory, advanced reasoning training, SMART. So it's about being strategic. It's about using your entire brain, not just your executive network, but bringing in your emotional and your memory to a problem. It's about reasoning through problems. It's about being really effective in understanding a problem and a solution, and then picking tools to get you the best answer. So if you're going to brainstorm about your business, the way you should best brainstorm is without using AI, without using Google, because they're not you. This is your game. You know more about your game than anybody. So you would use yourself first. And when you brainstorm what it takes, then you can kind of fill in the gaps with some other ideas from AI or from Google Copilot or any of the tools available to you. You start with you and what you want to accomplish and what you're trying to achieve. And you're probably not I don't know if you are, maybe you're a baseball guy, but no. Yogi Berra said one time, he was the manager of the Yankees, and he said, if you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up somewhere else.
Sure.
Profound, actually,
For sure.
when you think about it, right? So very often, part of understanding where somebody is going, they've got to really understand where it is they want to end up. And then you can kind of plan on getting there. Life throws enough curveballs at each of us every day, things that we hadn't thought about. But when you know where you're going, you're more likely to end up there than if you have no clue about that. So I'm kind of a go back to the basics kind of guy and really understand who you are through your values and understand where you're trying to go through your roadmap, and then apply these tools to yourself as you go forward down this path.
Well said. Thank you so much. You are talking about MindSmart. So let's just dive into that in some more details.
Okay.
I'm really intrigued, by what you're doing with MindSmart, and I also want to know more. I believe our audience also will want to know more. Bringing neuroscience into business leadership. Okay, you launched this a couple of years ago, applying brain science to leadership and business performance. What was a specific gap you saw in the market that made you say, I need to create this. I know you told me about how you get into this, but what was not in the traditional business consulting and coaching program that you think MindSmart is now addressing? What are some of the problems that you're using this framework to solve? If you want to maybe give us some practical examples, like compare and contrast, and some of the things you've done with MindSmart and the results that you've achieved.
So when you're on the outside looking in at a client and their business, you have the advantage of being objective. You're not in their shoes. They're living their life every day, dealing with their problems. And you're on the outside looking in. So you have objectivity that they don't have. So how do you help them see these things that you see in their business that they need? Maybe they need to incorporate some different marketing strategies. Maybe they need to include different software and technology in their business. Maybe they need to handle their personnel in a different manner. All of these elements of business, if they can't see that there's a different way of doing it, they're never going to get a different result. So the approach I've taken, and I've got to be honest with you, this isn't for everybody, because a lot of people are so stuck that they can't see it. They don't even want to go back and challenge themselves. Now, that seems strange to you and me because we're willing to do that, aren't we? Yeah. But a lot of businesses are not. My wife works for a company. I would never want them as a client. Not because of my wife, but because I know that they do not want to change. And I would be disappointed that I couldn't convince them to change. So I would never want them as a client. They've got the money, they've got a great name, they've got a reputation, they are unique in their field, but I would never want to work with them because I know how stuck they are. So I think that what you have to do is you have to meet somebody when they're ready. And so how do you do that? Because my wife's company, they wouldn't be listening to this podcast, but somebody here might be and say, maybe I need to look at that. People have a misconception about the brain. Right now, you're beginning to hear a lot about the brain in the public airways and everything, but it's centered around mental health. It's not centered around getting the best out of a healthy brain. So my message is a more difficult message to take to people. They have to be willing to look at themselves. So if they are and they begin to use these protocols, then they will have the kind of success that I had, and saving mass amounts of time, making more money, all of these things. I didn't mention that in my CPA firm, people who come to work here, you've heard all the horror stories, right? CPAs working 80 hours a week and all of that. The big firms saying during tax season, you have to work at least 60 hours a week. We don't do that here. Our staff works 40, 45 hours a week, even during the busiest time, because we get things done. We use the practices that we've learned from Mindsmarts, our Mindsmarts work, to be better at what we do. And we recognize when people do that. So I think that the biggest thing really is somebody has to be open-minded and willing to look at themselves. And that's really hard you've got to find them at the right time. Yeah. Now, if you and I are being honest, which we are, okay, and we can see something that a client needs. You can see how your podcast will reach people for the people that listen to your podcast. And you can be confident about that. As you grow your base, you're going to have more and more people, and you'll be able to have more and more guests that get the benefit of your podcast. So if we're being honest, though, it's still up to that listener, or in my case, my client, to spend the money and time to implement something. We can be objective, but we also don't have to spend the money and time, right, to implement something for a client. So the most effective use of for a financial person employed either in a CPA firm or in a financial advisory firm or just in a business on the financial side is we have to be open to looking at ourselves. I think the thing that bothers me the most is somebody that doesn't really use their brain. That irritates me. One of my sons says, Dad, there are a bunch of dumb people out there in this world. And there are some. I don't say that to people, but my son, he quotes that all the time. He says, there are a bunch of dumb people. And I say, well, why is that? He says, well, they don't use their brain. Aha. Well, I think they should use their brain. And anybody who really wants to look at that for themselves can incorporate these brain performance protocols and become better at thinking, because what happens is you actually grow brain cells when you use your brain differently. So let me tell you a couple of protocols to use.
Okay.
Are you a multitasker?
I used to, but I just feel like it's not the best.
Okay. Actually, your brain can't multitask, but you have to understand what it is. Multitasking is doing two different things at the same time while chasing separate goals. So you and I can talk, we can read, we can evaluate, we can bring other people into the conversation. We can do all of that if it's a single goal, okay? But if it's a different goal, we can't do that. All you have to do is talk to some kid that's on TikTok and ask them a question. What's going to happen? They're not going to answer you, right? You got to almost shake them by the shoulder and say, hey, pay attention to me. And the reason is that they're locked in to one thing, and they can't do two things at one time. When they talk to you, then what happens is that they can't really watch that dance or whatever they're watching on TikTok because they're talking to you. And the way I prove this in training is I put a study up on the board, on the screen, and I have people read the study. And while they're reading the study, I read something else to them about sleep patterns, totally different than what they're reading. And then I give them a test. I'm sorry to say, everybody fails the test. I failed the test the first time because you can't.
Trying to listen to both sides.
Right, you're trying to listen to both or read one and listen to the other, and you can't do that. There is one question in that everybody seems to get because it's a unique enough curiosity piece that nobody had thought of, and that's from the part that I read, and people often answer that question properly. None of the other questions they answer properly because you can't do both at one time. So if what you would want your listeners to do is to cut out all the distractions and listen to your podcast. That's what you would want your listeners to do, right?
That's true.
And so that's one of the things that we teach people, and that's to cut out all the outside distractions. So I'm in Dallas, and we've had a run of 3 football wins by the Cowboys. And if I'm sitting here doing a technical matter and somebody in my office comes in and says, hey, Cap, how about those Cowboys? Wonder what they're going to do Thursday night when they play Detroit. I'm going to get distracted away from the technical work I'm doing because we're all nuts about the Cowboys in Dallas. And so I would then exit what I'm doing and pay attention to that conversation. Now, what happens after they leave? I'm going to say to myself, well, now, where was I on this project? Anybody would say that. Well, where was I? Yeah. Then you're going to figure out where you were. And then you're going to say, well, I did something, a few minutes ago. I have to go back and refresh my memory about that. It takes time to go back to something when you're interrupted. We have a policy here, like right now, if you looked on the other side of my office, you would see my door is closed. So typically my door's open for anybody in my firm or when clients come in. I'm always available. But when my door is closed, nobody bothers me. And even the most junior accountant in our firm, if they close their door, I'm not going to bother them because I know that they're concentrating on something. So I give you and your listeners something to do that will prove this for them.
Okay.
Next time you leave in your case, leave your office or home where you're working, and anybody else, to get in the car and turn off the radio and see what happens. It's going to be a different kind of experience because people are used to having these interruptions and noise going on all the time. And it'll be different. It'll be different for anybody who does that. In my case, when I turn off the radio, I tend to kind of use the time to refresh myself because I'm on all day long, whether I'm doing technical work or if I'm talking to you, I'm tuned in to what I'm doing and I need to relax some. And so that's one of the things that I get by turning off my radio. So one of the things you need to train yourself to do is to limit your distractions. Some people say, well, I like to have background music going on, okay? Some people like that. So raise your awareness when you're trying to do something detailed, or say you're working on plans to scale your broadcasting or whatever. And I want you to be aware that when a tune comes on the radio that you personally relate to, notice how it distracts you. Because you'll start singing it or you'll start thinking about why that song is important to you. And we have a joke in my family about a song that I really like. If it's on in the background, if music is on and that comes on afterwards, I can guarantee you I'm going to sing that song. I'm not going to be doing my work. So I'm going to be distracted. There are all kinds of studies about that. One says that in many cases, people don't even go back to what they were working on when they were distracted from it. Wow. Somebody comes in at noon and wants to talk about the Cowboys. I talk to them for a short time and then, well, it's almost lunchtime. I break and I go to lunch and then I didn't want to do that technical work anyway. I wanted to do something else. It's not unusual for somebody not even to go back and work on what they were working on before they were interrupted. So interruptions are crazy distraction of doing the kind of work somebody needs to do. You lose productivity as much as 40%. Just that example I gave where you asked, well, where was I on that? And you have to go back to kind of catch up to where you were, and then you can move forward. That's not at all being productive. What is productive is to be not bothered until you get something completed.
Okay. Thank you so much. I actually wanted to, there are two questions that I want to, but I will put it into one. For the purpose and the benefit of our audience, because I know a lot of people that will be watching, that will be listening, we definitely want to know more. But I just want to give them more, in terms of this next question. It's two questions, but I'm going to put it in one so that you can sum it up, in few sentences, if you can. All right. So the first one is, can you describe how, if somebody wants to go into this program, they want to register for MindSmart, how is the day-to-day going to look like? Like, is it going to be like a 1 week straight and then it's finished? Is it going to be like a 6 month? What is the most important thing they have to do daily? Because I saw somewhere you talk about 5 minutes. 5 minutes daily routine. So something like that. So I just want you to put together what it looks like in summary. That's one part. The second part is practical example of how you have used, how use MindSmart to solve a particular problem in an organization that has led to revenue increase, profitability, client retention, or something measurable that you can share with us. So those are the two things that I just want our audience to have a feel of.
Okay, great. So the first one is that you want enough training and commitment so that you just make it part of your everyday activity. So just an example that you mentioned about a 5-minute sabbatical. The Center for Brain Health recommends 5-minute breaks every day. Okay? 5-minute breaks every day. Don't
Five into 5
5 minute, 5 times a
times
day. So when I don't do that every day, I mean, I've got real worlds going on outside of our podcast, and sometimes I don't get those in. But that's telling you that your brain muscle has to rest, okay? So it's not thinking because you're always thinking, but it's just not hardcore thinking about the work you're doing. So a break is really important. Shutting out distractions. These are things that you do routinely as part of your lifestyle.
But sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify. This 5 minutes, what will you be doing? Is it like you just close your eyes for 5 minutes, no talking to anyone, or what exactly will happen in that 5 minutes?
Yeah, or taking a walk down the hall, or going into the kitchen, getting a cup of coffee, and just where it could be anything. Just it's a time to just let your brain relax a little bit. Okay, so it's not non-thinking because we're always thinking. But if you walk down, right, but if you walk down the hall to another office or whatever, then you're distracting yourself from this heavy-duty, detailed, complicated work that you're on. So you're not thinking about that as you walk down the hall. Okay. So, and that's really important. You could ask yourself, when do I get my aha moments? Aha, why didn't I think of that before? You get those when your brain is resting, not when you're in the heat of battle. So you ask about a case where this has helped somebody specifically. I have a client who is an auto repair shop, and he went through the training, and all he needed were 2 clients. That's all he needs, 2 clients. Wow, why is that? Well, a client is like Allstate Insurance that's going to send all their car wrecks to him, right? Or some big insurance company. So when he said, I just need 2 clients, what he's saying is I need 2 insurance companies that are going to refer all their business from a car wreck or what have you to him to repair those bodies because he's got a body shop. And so we worked with him on a weekly basis, basically challenging him to just get in touch with, he had a list of 10 of these auto insurance companies. And you would think, well, okay, all he has to do is call them, right? But for some reason, he couldn't. It took him changing the way he looked at his world. And when he finally got down to it with weekly coaching for about 6 weeks, 2 things came out of it. One is that he was a perfectionist. And if he couldn't make that phone call to Allstate or one of the big insurance companies, if it couldn't be perfect, he didn't want to make the call. He had to come to that realization. The second thing he had to realize and came to the realization was the only reason he wasn't doing it was he had some fear about it. And in his case, it would have been a fear of success because he's got a very talented group of people. I know he fixed my car, had a ding in my fender or my bumper, and he fixed it like new. So I know personally his work. And so it was a matter of training him and getting him to really be introspective about himself. Because you would think if all he had to do was call these people and fill out some forms, he could have had all 10 of them. but he couldn't get to that point. It took him being really introspective about himself. And so now he has 2 new clients. So even the simplest things can trip up a business owner. So why couldn't I have just gone in there? We do his accounting work also. Why couldn't I have just said, hey, Tracy, just call these people? It wouldn't have happened. He had to come to grips with who he was and what about him was keeping him from the potential that he had. And he had to deal with the fact that when business was slow, he still wasn't ready to call. When then business would get good, and he'd say, well, I don't need them now. And then business would get slow again. I'm describing a lot of business owners who get trapped in their old way of thinking. And when he had the training and he began to understand himself better as a result of it, he was able to get those 2 new clients, which resulted in probably hundreds of cars that he needed to repair. So he's a perfect example of that. Now, how is that measured? You ask about measuring that. We're used to measuring, so we were able to measure what we got, okay? Higher revenues, we could see that from our financial statement. Sure. Higher profits, we could see that from our financial statement. I don't have that exact measurement from Tracy, the guy that owns the auto repair shop, okay? And he's not really good at numbers and things like that. That's not his. He is this perfectionism that shows up in his work was this very same thing that was stopping him from calling these big insurance companies. And when he came to grips with that understanding, that's when he took the step. So his was an unusual case like that. In the financial advisors I'm working with right now, both are making money. They're doing okay at their business, but they will measure their success by higher income. And that's the way they'll measure their success because they're financial people, right? So that's where this shows up for somebody who's willing and open. And the protocols are really simple. I mean, think about that. I got to try to not do 2 things at one time, okay? That's not, taking a 5-minute break frequently throughout the day. That's not hard to do. Now, it helps to understand the science behind it. So when I teach somebody these types of protocols, I teach them the science behind it so that they understand it better. But it doesn't take extra work. I mean, you're thinking now. So if I teach you a better way to think, you're still thinking, but you're thinking differently.
That's true. Wow. Thank you so much. Can go on and on and on. But we have to wrap up. In 60 seconds, what advice will you give people, especially when it comes to thinking using their brain, MindSmart, in just 60 seconds?
I would say to know that your brain is changing every moment that you're alive, and it's either getting better or worse. And you have control over that. You can control your brain, and you can control yourself to work smarter, or you can control yourself to sit on the couch and watch TV all the time. It's up to you. And of course, we can tell people they can find me at either mindsmarts.com or kepnercpa.com, either one.
You didn't even allow me to ask the question. But,
okay, well.
Good. But that's good. That's brilliant. Because that was going to be the last question. How will people find you? But it's okay. I think it's all good. But thank you so much. Your insight.
It's my own self. What about that?
Oh, that's good. That's good. I think it's also the way you were thinking, which is really fascinating. But thank you so much for sharing this valuable. Thank you so much for coming through. Thank you for sharing this important information with us. And I think I want to wish you well, and we'll continue to engage. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Very nice. Thank you for inviting me.
You didn't quit your day job to become a full-time admin assistant. The Intelligence Forge podcast is sponsored by Permasize AI Forge. At Permasize AI Forge, We know you didn't start your business to spend 60 hours a week on paperwork, chasing leads, and managing endless admin tasks. You started it to build something meaningful and serve your clients. But right now, you're trapped in the day-to-day grind instead of growing your business. What if I told you our clients are reclaiming 15, 20 hours per week, increasing their revenue by 30 to 50% within 6, 12 months, and finally getting their lives back? We don't just automate random tasks. We build custom AI systems that eliminate the bottlenecks choking your growth, from leads generation to lead, nurturing and management to project management to client follow-ups. Stop paying for an expensive, frustrating manual system. It's time to upgrade to strategic automation. Visit PermasizeAIForge.com and book your free business transformation strategy call today. Discover exactly how much time and money you're losing to manual processes and how to get both back. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Intelligence Forge, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode packed with game-changing insights. Your future automated business is waiting.